Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. Let us now move on to our next session, which is the 7th session for the day. And this is a panel discussion on InsurTech transforming uncertainty into innovation. Insurance has been the most underutilized financial instrument in most of the world. Specifically in India, the rate of insurance penetration has been very low. Now, there has been an increased participation by the private sector to bring a revolutionary change in the insurance landscape by reaching the grassroots with the available insurance options, and there is a hope that this will be able to address the uncertainty and the issues related to the insurance. The main discussion point of the agenda is to address the challenges faced by insurance companies to increase penetration and to find out if there can be a harmony between all insurance players to collectively represent the innovation in advanced technologies, which makes insurance options viable and feasible. Now, joining us for this panel today are Ms. Vishakha RM, who's MD and CEO at India First Life. Vishakha will also act as the moderator and a guide to our panel. Welcome to the discussion, Vishakha. Vishakha is also joined by KV Dipu, President and Head of Operations, Bajaj Allianz. Good to see you here, Mr. Dipu, and welcome.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Vishwanath Ramarao, Chief Product and Technology Officer at Acko. Welcome to the session, Mr. Vishwanath.
Thank you for having me.
And to complete this session, we are joined by Mr. Chiranth Patil, founder at Riskcovry. Welcome to the session, Chiranth. And with that, I would like to hand over this session to Vishakha. Over to you, Vishakha.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. It's indeed a pleasure to be here with some very, very interesting co-panelists. I think we've got a brilliant representation here: life insurance, non-life insurance, distribution, and the new age insurance company, right? So I think this is as good as you can get across the field. So what we will try and do today is that we'll try and look at the topic, which is uncertainty into innovation. And, since I have the mic, I'll go first and say that, at India First Life, what we try to do is many things. The top 3 which come into mind are how we converted all our customer meetings, which we used to typically have in the bank branches, into a webinar based. So e-sampark of 10 people, 15 people doing a video meets kind of a thing for lead generation. E-recruitment, we never thought we would do interviews and hire people without even seeing them. So I think e-recruitment hired almost 600 people in this entire period, which was again, I think, uncertainty into innovation. And of course, the work from anywhere, enabling a work from anywhere. Never thought I would allow someone to go and say, I'm going to work from my hometown in Jaipur and look after my family. And I would have probably said, look for a job. But right now, we just enabled that work from anywhere, again, saying uncertainty into innovation. While, I can think of these top 3. Can I go around the table, the virtual table, if you please, and request each of you to share a few examples of what is it that you've done in your organizations in order to transform uncertainty into innovation. Can I start with Dipu?
Yeah. Thank you, Vishakha, and good afternoon, everyone. Absolute pleasure to be here. If you look at it from our perspective, we have 3 constituencies: the employee, the partner, and the customer. What we did for the customer when COVID-19 forced, shutdown of contact centers was to basically get them to migrate seamlessly to our digital assets. So even today, more than 80% of our servicing happens via digital assets. We have an AI-driven bot, we have WhatsApp, we have a mobile app. Coming to employees, of course, virtual factory, because today people are working from home across the entire country. And the other is from an employee engagement perspective, we were able to convert adversity to opportunity by moving from employee engagement to family engagement. And I think that really ramped up our employee engagement scores. Coming to our partners, we were able to enable them digitally. So we gave them video SOPs. They were able to issue policies and carry out servicing on their. So today, 90% of our servicing by our partners happens digitally. All in all, we did not just survive, but we actually thrived through the crisis, thanks to these initiatives.
Thanks, Dipu. Thanks very much. I love the family engagement part of it. I think that's an interesting way to to compensate the family for all the efforts that they are putting in having to take the work into their homes.
Right.
Vishwanath, would you like to tell us I mean, you were already digital. You had already thought of everything that you could in the digital world. So what additional opportunities did you manage to get through this COVID-19 pandemic?
Sure. The beginning of the year before COVID really hit, we had a small health insurance practice. We were still sort of building our conviction around that practice. And as the pandemic swept through, it became increasingly clear that for the nation and for us as a company, health insurance is going to play a very big role. And so we accelerated our investment in health insurance fivefold in that period. And doing that on top of an ERP base that was already pretty severely hit because of the pandemic. And now we had to suddenly re-architect internal applications, make them ready for work from home, work from anywhere situations, and launch a brand new health practice there. So lots of change, lots of innovation on top of the pandemic in the middle of all of that chaos. And a lot of the other products that we had, while they were all pretty digital, they still had a few remnants of physical touch points. For example, being a PNC insurer, when you have to inspect a vehicle, we sent an inspector on site to the customer's location for them to be able to take a picture, talk to the customer, get some information, and then sort of get that information into our ERP systems. But once the pandemic hit, all of that went out of the door. And we suddenly, all those remnants of physical touch points that were there were completely converted to digital. So we now have self-serve workflows for people to be able to self-survey, self-inspect their cars. And we have backend systems that can analyze that almost completely in an automated way as well.
Yeah, I think that's real acceleration, right? Because you keep hearing about the self-survey and self-inspect world over, there are enough and more videos. It's good to see that you've managed to actually implement it. We'll come back to the details of that, Vishwanath, maybe once we give Chiranth the chance to talk about what he's done at Riskcovry.
Thanks so much for the question, and great to be here. So as a Riskcovry, for people who we are probably the smallest brand here among the rest of my esteemed co-panelists here. So if I can take a minute to kind of just talk a little bit of what Riskcovry does so that I can contextualize how COVID kind of affected us. So we see ourselves as an insurance distribution infrastructure platform. We bring all the components that are required for any business to start insurance distribution across products, across channels, across insurance companies. So the precedence that we are kind of inspired by is that of payment gateways, right? So can we bring a payments approach to insurance distribution from a perspective that if any large business wants to start accepting digital payments, they don't necessarily go and build their own payment gateway. They partner up with one like say a Razorpay or a Stripe. So can we do something like that for insurance distribution? Be that one-stop shop for any business to start insurance distribution and then scale it completely digitally across channels, whether you're doing it DIY, assisted, or in a bundled or an affinity manner, right? So that is our thesis as a growing startup, and we quickly realized that COVID became a huge tailwind for us. So what kind of happened to digital payments on the back of demonetization? We were wondering if that is happening on the back of, to insurance on the back of COVID-19, especially on the health side as well. So, and when you think about it, something like insurance, when it starts with an innate sort of a personal need like health insurance, this is a tailwind here to stay. So the way we capitalized on this was to think about it in terms of various stakeholders, right? So our partners were sort of, we were digital first, so we kind of accelerated all kinds of digital channels for them. We worked on sort of, products that were very relevant for them, like health became the center more than any other sort of, category on the health, on general or the life side. So we accelerated and invested on that particular side as well, very much to my colleague who was, Vishwanath was here, who was talking about that as well. We have been sort of, from an employee perspective, we have been sort of, distributed from day zero. We are 4 co-founders. 2 of us are from Mumbai, 2 of us are from Bangalore. So COVID-19 became an accelerated version of us, how we were to grow. So we kind of invested in making sure that, we hire talent across the board. It doesn't matter where you are from. As long as you're great, we would love for you to kind of work with us. And finally, in terms of the startup, what it has meant really, it has become obviously a great opportunity, humbling numbers to be talking about in front of panelists here who are doing millions of dollars of business. But as a growing startup, last December we had sold all of 42 policies. The last month we sold about 25,000. So that's like a 500% jump, a 500 times jump in a matter of 11 months or so, which is what we are doing as a growing startup. So COVID-19 has fortunately become a tailwind for us, and we're hoping to kind of capitalize on it as we go further along as well.
I think that's a very impressive number to speak of, Chiranth. I don't think there's anything to be shy of in a number of 25,000 policies in a month. And tailwinds indeed. So I'm just going to go the reverse way around that we just worked upon and probably ask you a follow-through question in terms of what are the challenges that you faced? I mean, what were some of the issues that you really couldn't resolve? You looked at the uncertainty and I said, you know what, there is an innovative solution to this uncertainty that we can figure.
Yeah, so I think I'll put it in 2 buckets. One bucket is, you can do something about it bucket. The second bucket is you can't do anything about it bucket. I'll go to the second bucket first. The can't do anything bucket is where you fundamentally need in-person kind of phenomenon to occur as part of your strategy, right? For instance, as much as we hiring, for instance, sometimes it's difficult to kind of actually take a call on a candidate unless you kind of meet them. Sometimes you need that handshake with your business partner. Sometimes you need that face-to-face meeting with an investor, for instance, right? So that is some of the things that we just couldn't help, and we have kind of kept our head above the water by doing and undertaking whatever tools we have to our disposal to kind of hedge those risks. On the other side, the way we see it is that, look, at the end of the day, we are in this business of building new partnerships and giving them accelerated momentum on the digital first side. So we are seeing a lot of our partners thinking about it in terms of going from digital to digital first to digital only. So how can we kind of connect the dots for them, right? So that meant that our partners had to move completely think digital first, and our partners are two-sided. We sit between large scale distribution and manufacturing side of the community. And when we were talking to large scale distributors, one thing that came out was different set of products that were more COVID friendly, right? In the sense, or COVID world friendly, or the new world norm friendly. And while we had that data and components to kind of help on the underwriting side, we didn't see some of our partners move fast enough. And so speed is always something that we would love as a fast growing a tech startup, right? That is kind of one thing. The other thing that I would say is that in the same bucket of, we can all do this together, I think is to take an ecosystem view to say that, look, the ecosystem requires about 20 of us to come in and compete with each other to kind of move the penetration needle in India, right? So we are probably 2% of the global insurance industry, but growing 5 times the rate, 2x the GDP of India. So if you believe in India, you need to believe in insurance. And if you need to believe in insurance, you have to believe in digital, right? So when you kind of look at it from that perspective and an ecosystem perspective, what we found was that, there is that not because of will of to enter into these paradigms, but because of inertia. Right, there is so much of invested in legacy technologies, legacy playbooks, legacy cultures and whatnot to leapfrog this and do really meaningful at scale business in the COVID and the post-COVID world required a little bit of a different mindset and an ecosystem level. and that involves us as well, right? So that is something that I think we saw different people moving, or different organizations moving at different gears. So some top-down sort of a view on that would probably coming from sort of more horizontal parts of the ecosystem, like the regulation, for instance, or the government, I think will be a phenomenal value add as we move along.
Yeah. Thank you, Chiranth. I think that's very useful. And it's interesting that you say that you needed that in-person phenomenon to occur, and coming right on as a follow-through to where I said we hired 600 people. I think it just goes to show how the in-person requirement is so different depending on need, right? If you're looking at it as an investors, or you're looking at a partnership, it's something very different from an employment perspective, and you see how it's the same requirement, but it changes shape and color based on what you're using it for. Vishwanath, your company doesn't have any issues of a legacy. While I know that Chiranth has got a lot of dependency on how the industry plays out, and based on his approach that he has for his platform, you kind of started new. You started only digital. Did you see any issues in being able to realize some of the innovation in your company, or it's been yes and more?
Look, I'll be honest. I think it's been being digital first has given us a big advantage there. It's really helped in these times when a lot of the physical models are more difficult to exercise. But sometimes you want to do even more, right? And a good example is when we wanted to really use the control of a digital platform to deliver maybe more custom policy periods at an extra month to tide over things, or change the pricing in such a way that you could sort of give back more to the community, our user base, and ensure that they know that we're with them. But a lot of the regulatory frameworks that have been built pre-pandemic, and so they're not very amenable to these types of twists and changes. And so in some way, the regulatory frameworks themselves needed to change for us to be able to innovate on new products. And so a lot of our challenge came down to which of the regulatory parameters were built with what consumer benefit in mind, and how could we work with the regulator to maybe relax some of these or change some of these during these extraordinary times, and maybe launch a more custom product for the times, or a more custom policy for the times that would be beneficial, of course, to our users, but also in some way show the real benefits of insurance during hard times. Unfortunately, like I said, there are these restrictions and frameworks that have been pre-pandemic. Nobody could think of them. So being in a regulated industry, some of these changes, of course, it took us a little bit. They were more difficult to change faster than what we could have changed ourselves internally. We were willing to make changes a lot more faster than maybe the frameworks allowed us to.
And just in continuation to what Chiranth mentioned about accelerated partners, right? It's that it's not enough that if we want to move fast, we need partners who can move equally fast. Do you see that as a challenge in terms of your customers adopting to your digital way of being? Surveyors, no more surveyors, you go do your own survey, this is the app. How easy or difficult has that adoption by customers been?
It's still early, so we have to let the verdicts come out on that, on how truly beneficial they are. But I think it comes down to good product design, right? When you design something well enough that it's consumer friendly, the replacement of an older model with a new model is usually a benefit rather than a hindrance. So the challenge for us is raising the quality bar high enough that people are not only doing it out of default because there's no other way to do it, but also because they enjoy doing it, or it's a faster way of delivering something. And so a lot of the effort that we're trying to put into it now is, having launched first versions of some of these experiences, how do we now sort of take them up a notch or two and make them truly customer friendly and make them here to stay, so that when things do open up and we are in a position to in some way go back to that older model, people still love the new way of working, an all digital way of working, right? And that's a challenge really from a product experience standpoint, to try and design the product to that quality level where the new experience is better than an older model. And I don't think we're quite there yet, but we're working towards it.
Okay. I got a not yet ready kind of an answer. We don't know as yet kind of an answer about how difficult it's going to be. Would that be a right takeaway for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see a lot of appetite. Most of these people that bought, most of our users that bought insurance online really are quite savvy, and a lot of the payments push, app usage and things like that have made it quite natural for them to look for digital ways to do it. It's just that whether that's a seamless replacement and does it handle all cases in the long run, that's to be seen. For example, optimizing an experience for low-end devices in India, is a hard problem. You need to really consider battery optimizations, video optimizations, network quality, a lot of different things. So what you don't want to do is just try to be digital first and put your consumer experience at risk trying to do that. And that's something that we're trying to avoid, really trying to sort of make this as good or better than what would have been maybe a physical experience for some of these touch points.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful entry point for me to go to Dipu. As a company, Dipu, you've got customers, who own Mercs to scooters, right? I mean, you insure Bajaj scooters, and you've got tie-ups with the distributors of Mercs and Audis. So, considering your wide range of customer segmentation, considering that when you spoke about your 3 pillars, you spoke about customer, and you said, you used a good word, I'm forgetting the word, something on digital processes for the customer. How has your experience of adoption been, barring the standard? And I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm taking away from what Vishwanath said, and I'm assuming you've done a lot of these things. So if I move away from just buying and customer policy downloading, or lodging a claim, which are kind of now pre-COVID era services, what are the kind of services that you found customers adopting to in the COVID era? We're not yet post-COVID, so.
Okay. So I think it's a good question, Vishakha, and that's why it's interesting. Like you said, it's a diverse panel. So when we saw the customer, I'll answer your question in 2 parts. One is the challenges, and the other is where I've seen offtake. So one of the areas where we saw a good uptake in adoption from customers on digital assets was, like I said, when the call center shut down. Like we see in those bike and car ads, overnight, you go from 0 to 100 kilometers, right? So our digital adoption, zoomed from, less than 25% to more than 80%. And these assets include WhatsApp, the mobile app, and, our AI-driven bot. What we had done was we had prepared, in advance. We had figured out key drivers of traffic into our call center. And then on those, categories, we had built end-to-end customer journeys on our digital assets. So which is why, the customer switch was seamless. Secondly, to the point that you had asked, Vishwa, we had also done the same thing in motor, whereby, in case you unfortunately crash your car, you don't need to go through the standard rigmarole of calling for a surveyor who comes to the spot, assesses the car, so on and so forth. We leveraged AI and a tool called machine. So what happens is the customer takes photographs of the car and then uploads the photographs using the mobile app. And our engine will assess the damage and convey the amount to him in as small a time as 20 to 30 minutes. The moment the customer gives a consent, we immediately transfer the amount. So these are areas where we have seen customer traction, be it customer servicing, be it policy issuance, or be it claims. Now, coming to your query around challenges, Vishakha, there are, I think, broadly 2 areas. One is today, across industries, is trying to increasingly go the digital way. But the default language of choice in the digital world is English. And we need to understand we cater to a customer segment which cuts across multiple languages, and the whole idea of customer centricity is to go where the customer is. So I think being multilingual, I think, is really going to be a frontier for players. And one thing which we did was because we also offer crop insurance, and most of them are farmers in rural India. So we came out with a mobile app exclusively for crop insurance customers, and we offered the app not in English. We offered the app in Indian languages, Hindi, Marathi, and Kannada. And the uptake was very good because not only could they avail of our insurance company services, they could also use the app to interact with the government. And since information asymmetry is very typical of rural markets, we also gave them a lot of value addition by giving them app notifications on the weather, on pricing, crop advisory, crop diagnostics. So the uptake was very high. Farmers loved it. In fact, at one point of time, we had a rating of 4.6 on the Play Store. And this app won the EFMA Accenture Insurance Innovation Award in June. And I think we need to increasingly ramp this up. The second thing which we all, I guess, across industries, the one challenge people may face is, on the one hand, when 5G comes in, you'll be in a position to offer enriched features on digital assets, especially the app. But on the other hand, when we are saying go completely digital, we also have, a lot of areas in India where bandwidth could be an issue, So, for example, can we come out with a lighter version of the app? So it will not be a one-size-fits-all app. It could be a very rich app on the one hand if, let's say, 5G comes in. And similarly, you have a lighter version of the app, where you have bandwidth issues. So I think if we can cater to the entire spectrum of bandwidth and be multilingual, I think we can really take it forward.
Thank you, Dipu. But if you do have numbers, because you had some amazing numbers for the adoption of digital assets in terms of 25% to an 80%. I'm particularly curious to know about the claims. Vishwanath. Vishwanath, do I call you Vishwanath or Ramarao? What's your first name?
Yeah, Vishwanath.
Thank you.
Fine, yes.
So, the way Vishwanath had to say that they're still optimizing experience for the low-end phones, the low network, and all the other challenges. And while they've launched surveyors, they're yet to pick up and see how it works. How has it been for you in terms of, because I know that this entire surveyors, I've spent a good part of my life in non-life, right? And I this whole surveyor business, and we all know how it moved from, you call a surveyor and get the estimate. It just moved to, okay, you take your car to the nearest garage and forget all about it. And I thought from a customer experience perspective, just taking the car to the nearest garage is honestly at a customer experience notch, which is way above the customer having to click phones and get an own survey. So actually doing your own survey is a notch below from a customer experience perspective, especially in a place where the car has to go for servicing, and it's not a car which you want to go and give it to the local mechanic and as long as I get the money. So I'm seeing a lot of nuances in who are the customers who will be willing to use the app and get a reimbursement versus customers who say, I don't want this additional headache. What has been your experience with that? Because I'm finding that new age completely. It was not a pre-COVID phenomena. It was something which you would see only in advertisements and in any FinTech application video. So how has that worked for you in terms of surveys? If you don't mind my pushing a point on that.
Sure, Vishakha. So basically, there are three dimensions to this. Now, when I said, that our servicing is 80% digital, I am talking about customers calling our call center, moving to digital assets. So which means today, if earlier, we had X percentage of customers calling the call center, today I'm saying the traffic breakup is 80% to digital assets and only 20% to the contact center. So that's from a number perspective. Now, coming to your point around, customers wanting to maybe take it to the garage, or maybe some customers not wanting to use the app. So Vishakha, what matters here is, how simple you can make it and how quick you can be in terms of your fulfillment. So we did a lot of, study, because we've obviously been in business for almost 2 decades. And, we ensured that, we were able to factor various scenarios into our engine, because the engine needs to understand from years of our expertise and then quickly, churn out the output, which a human being does. So that was one. And the other is we made it very simple for our customers, in terms of clicking photographs, because it's a simple step process. You just click photographs, upload on the app, and in 20 minutes, we give you the amount. So we made it this one. And what also happens, which is typically a very underrated part of launch, is communication. I think we really embarked on a massive communication blitzkrieg, not only on our digital servicing, but even also on our motor on the spot. We told customers that even if you do not want to interact with people, because during COVID-19 times you don't want to interact with, let's say, a third-party surveyor, or even if you do not want to go to the contact center, we have all these options available. We leverage all the communication tools at our disposal, and that is the reason the offtake was high. The other thing which we need to keep in mind, Vishakha, which is from an overall perspective, is from an overall volume perspective during COVID-19, whether you look at claims across the industry, the volumes would have seen a bit of a dip because people also were not taking out cars, whereas now you will see, people taking out cars, and then, the volume returning to, to peak levels. But during this period, I think from whatever we could do and where customers found it convenient, I think the offtake was significant.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. I've been joking with some of my industry colleagues in the non-life saying, you guys just made the premium for free. I said, this time your ratios are going to be fantastic. And they said it's all been wiped out by the health claims. But anyway, let's see how that pans out. With the motor versus health, we'll probably know at the end of the year. So we've got just about 3 minutes to go. And even if I just take it 2 more minutes, can I do a quick round starting from Vishwanath, Dipu and Chiranth? Do you think we will go back post-COVID? I mean, we've got the vaccine now. UK has seen the vaccine. And we hear reports about how COVID has lost its strength. Now it's become a slightly strident flu, but it's not the killer virus that it was. If these are the reports that we want to believe in, and if we do believe that, say maybe at worst it is another 9 months before we turn the corner on COVID. What changes do you think are here to stay? And where do you think we're going to fall back to pre-COVID ways?
Yeah, see, from what we see, I think, even before COVID, we had the same thesis that digital was a more efficient way of doing business overall. And it was, led to automation, led to a lot of different outcomes that were favorable for the business, favorable to the customer. That is only accelerated, and I think that truth has now completely set in, right? Every business, including insurance businesses, have all realized the importance of digitization and automation, and that's not going to change. It's only going to continue to accelerate, and companies are going to get more and more efficient. If anything, I think some of the teamwork pieces that we were talking about, where everybody's on video calls and doing this digitally, there is always that need to collaborate with people face to face, work together, be in the same physical space, and understand each other's body language, communication patterns, a lot of these things that leads to better product. I think companies are going to find a way to bring some element of that back, not the entirety of it, but some element of it. Maybe there is a model where a company can allow employees to come visit and work together on particular days, particular months, or around certain key events. So even for companies that are going to go completely remote, I think some of that human interaction is much needed and is welcome after having spent a year and a half in homes and offices isolated from each other. I think that will return in a little bit of a refined form coming through.
Yeah.
So thanks, Vishwanath. Dipu.
Yeah. So Vishakha, the way I see it, any black swan event, changes the world, in some irreversible way. I think, for example, work from home is a no-brainer. If it makes sense for the organization, you save on real estate cost. It makes sense for the employee, you save on commute time. Those will continue to stay. But I think areas like travel will come back because man is a social animal and doesn't like to be cooped up. So, so I think, you'll see an increasingly, it will be a different world, but, we'll return to some basic human traits while, of course, work from home and an increasingly digital way of living will continue.
Interesting. Chiranth? You're on mute, Chiranth.
Oh boy, two in a row. So I agree with my co-panelists here. Sometimes it's hard to also think through the upsides of the pandemic that we're living through, right? There is a sense of an efficiency that we have found ourselves in, which probably wouldn't have been the case otherwise. Probably some of them are here to stay. I wouldn't want to talk too much about the employee side, because I think my co-panelists have kind of touched upon that. But if we were to think about it from a customer's perspective, right, what this has brought about in our sense, and having seen sort of various kinds of distribution partners at different levels of complexities, different kind of channels that they are maybe strong in. What it really enforces is the different kinds of products that need to come in, which are completely on demand, completely personalized, completely sort of hyper relevant, as we call it, right? So it's the customer centricity for us begins with choice. And that choice means that, you can't think about two customers exactly the same way. So can we kind of design kind of products that are not just at a partner level, but from our perspective at the consumer cohort of a partner, right? So that is something that we are trying to kind of work through. And we think that is the way the world will go as well. Getting hyper personalized, hyper relevant, hyper sort of, on demand kind of products. And the other part of it is like, to Vishwanath's point as well, if fundamentally three touch points that a customer has with a carrier, right? The buy, manage, and claim. The manage and claim bit haven't seen too much of digitization, right? So we think that it's hygiene that it is going to go into that particular side as well. So I think these are the few of those things that I think, if not has changed it has not just accelerated, but the fundamental way of how we see some of these things could be very different in the post-COVID world. But we do hope things go back to normal ASAP.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I'll just conclude by saying that one of the things that the entire COVID has brought out is the uniqueness of each individual. I think within a group of four of us, we probably will have different views on work from anywhere versus traveling versus work from home. And I'm sitting in office just because I couldn't bear to work out of home any longer. It was just seeing just two faces at home got to you after a point of time. You wanted to see larger spaces. So I think the hyper-personalization, the fact that every individual is unique, every individual is going to think differently, is going to have an impact on policies. I think we will probably not just have products for individual customers differently, but we'll probably also have rules for every employee differently. And with this, I thank you all very much. Thanks, Dipu, Chiranth, Vishwanath. You've been wonderful panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your views candidly. And thank you, Amit.
Yeah, thank you, Vishakha. Thank you
for having us.
And thanks, Vishakha, for moderating.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you all.